Welcome, everybody. Planet Green Trees. Officially, today is April 17th, and this is episode 195. We're calling it the deschedule versus reschedule debate. Good evening. I'm your host, Michael Komorn, and we are Michigan's premier medical cannabis and cannabis reform blog talk radio show. And with me, beside me, week after week, joining and adding to the information that will be brought to you tonight for your listening pleasure is Chad from the Birmingham Compassion Club.
Good evening. It's nice to be here.
No longer missing and accounted for, one and only Rick Thompson. Right on time. Rick, of course, is the editor-in-chief of the Compassion Chronicles. And, he's brought with him
I don't like to travel alone, so I brought stud man Eric Gunnels with me.
That is right. So good to see our one and only trustee of Thetford Township. Text him at 1-800. Eric Gunnels, everybody. Is that still, that's not funny anymore? Welcome. Hold on, let me get those mics on. Hold on. All right. Eric, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
And I'm still not accounted for, but I think he's close would be the one and only Jamie Lowell, the producer of Planet Green Trees, and person responsible for bringing week after week the relevant and most pertinent guests for your listening pleasure. He is en route, I understand, and will be here shortly to give his one or two words that he contributes to the show every week. Tonight we're calling it the deschedule versus reschedule debate. We plan to open up the debate in discussion of what is the best direction for the medical cannabis or cannabis reform community regarding the cannabis movement. What impact will rescheduling have? Which schedule, if preferred, is preferred for cannabis? Or should the plant simply be descheduled and treated like a potato? Joining us to enlighten the debate will be Doug McVay, researcher and policy analyst. Doug is also an activist, writer, researcher, and speaker with a long history in drug policy reform. Doug worked for the National Organization of Reform of Marijuana Laws as their activist projects coordinator from 1987 to 1990, and in 1990 co-founded and began working with the Cannabis Action Network, CAN. He is also a court-qualified expert witness on the subject of marijuana use. We're going to take his number down for some more cases. Sale and cultivation. Doug has testified in both state and federal courts in the United States. Second part of the show, we're going to be getting into what is a very interesting topic and timely nonetheless for, as we do every week, the Provisioning Center advocates meeting with the Michigan State Police to iron out quote-unquote differences. Joining us to discuss this meeting will be Robin Schneider, the National Patients' Rights Association legislative chairwoman, and I think we've confirmed Ben Horner of CSG. He is confirmed, and we plan to determine what were the issues that were discussed, if any, and was there any progress that was made. I'm going to rant in a little while, and we're going to do the news, more current events, and Eric Gunnels may do a song for us. Is that what I understand? Just kidding. So I'm going to rant here for a quick second. One of the topics that came up and discussed it a couple weeks ago, but it seems timely today, and was this discussion, and I know we have some witnesses to the event of whether or not, and I don't know the whole, we get the whole story, but there's a discussion today for there's a committee of whether or not to employ saliva tests and roadside testing to determine if individuals have certain drugs, I think specifically marijuana, but
House of Representative Judiciary Committee, yes.
Okay. And I talked about this a couple weeks ago of the problems that already exist with measurements of the amount of THC in the blood. I discussed some of the inherent accuracy and precision requirements that are not being satisfied by the state police lab. They know this, and it's problematic. They're also the same police lab that suggested and caused all these problems by testifying that they were not able to determine the amount of THC in a brownie, which we know is not true. But the point is that there's already existing problems of reliability and certainty with the testing. And, before I talk about the specific saliva test, it's just a very, very interesting time right now because as nationally, and it would appear to be a movement towards reforming the marijuana laws in at least one state that has legalized it for adults, 2 states. But both of those states somehow, with the common sense and steps in the right direction, many say, ended up with driving laws that had statutory per se limits. In fact, Colorado and Washington State both have a 5 nanograms of THC per se limit, and it's treated like an alcohol where if those are the numbers, it's per se. The presumption here can be rebutted, but it must be considered to be accurate, and it must be considered to be impaired. Michigan right now with the Beal versus Kuhn out of the Michigan Supreme Court has said that having it in your system, any level, while applicable in a crime for anyone that's not a patient, in addition to it being in your bloodstream, in Michigan, patients it has to be evidence established that there's some impairment caused by the marijuana that affected the driving.
That's the same standard as other substances that you can get over the counter as well, right?
That is correct. There's no other per se limits.
Or other herbal remedies, anything like that. Same standard. Right.
But there's a catch-all phrase now in the Motor Vehicle Code amended that really is like an open-ended any drug food item that may cause impairment beyond just but again it means that they can charge you with it. All of those don't have a level, like anything. I mean, for example, what came up in a case that we had is a person was taking Xanax, and we had other prescriptions, and they took blood, but they don't know what it means, but a toxicologist, a pharmacologist can tell you what therapeutic levels are for an individual that's taken it for a certain period of time. So, so they can call it whatever they want to. It's the same thing with marijuana. That's the point I wanted to get to, that this discussion today was independent of the test and its validity. It's a discussion about the need to test, the need to find out whether people have marijuana in their system. Why is this? I mean, we've got this recognition of more sensible ways of looking at marijuana reform, especially for patients. But then you have this step backwards, like into Cro-Magnon time, that 5 nanograms of cannabis, is going to somehow is per se impaired. And one of the trends that I think is happening is you're seeing in Colorado, especially more reported, I think, is that there's more and more arrests for driving while under the influence of marijuana. There's an attorney in this article I was reading who's seen more cases of drug driving than in 15 years of practice. Gets a call every day. A few years ago, it was just a few each month. Colorado State Patrol started tracking marijuana use among drug driving convictions. In January that month, about half of the 61 drug driving arrests involved people who had used pot by itself or with other drugs. In February, the percentage had jumped to 74. And it's like a payback, I think, for the possession charges that these officers couldn't get a couple of dollars out of or couldn't keep the courts busy, it would seem. But, the point is that, until there's a reason to get so crazy about this with the driving where there's with all the drunk driving videotapes that exist out there, I still have yet to see someone that has been established as being impaired by marijuana. And it was explicit that they were, as obvious as someone on a video that's intoxicated. I'm not suggesting people drive and smoke, but where is the evidence? Where is the evidence that it is correlated to bad driving? Where are the incidences? I mean, alcohol, unequivocal. And I just think that the direction where this is going, it's a faulty premise that there's not, substantiated evidence that any of these numbers are meaningful. I mean, 5 nanograms, as we've learned, could be from somebody who ingested cannabis at 9 o'clock the night before, who uses regularly every night at 9 o'clock throughout the, every day. I mean, so these numbers they're ludicrous, and it varies from person to person. It has and independent of what the numbers are, proof that any of this has an impact on a person's ability to function. Now, this article and what I know about the way that the arguments against what I'm saying are made is that there's a couple studies, one by a woman by the name of Marilyn Hoistis. She's the foremost expert. She has mentioned this article. Let me just... she's been doing research and is really the foremost expert who is relied upon in her writings and her research for the purposes of making the case of what might be a level of THC in a person's body. And there's so many flaws to the study. It's a perfect environment. I think one of the unrecognized factors that makes the reports faulty is that these circumstances are done under the most perfect situation. When patients or people with cannabis in their system are having blood drawn from them, these circumstances are quite different than in this nice, comfortable study where people were smoking marijuana, having their blood drawn, driving, coming back, having their blood drawn every 15 minutes or so. And there is a fight or flight system in the body that kicks in, that adrenaline pumps, and these circumstances people get afraid. And I think
raises the cannabinoid level, potentially.
And the metabolism in the system under those circumstances unleash the THC from the fat cells. So it has been said and studied, and one of the factors that is not contemplated in this study by Marilyn Hoistis. But moving on, the point is that there's a tremendous need, albeit no real premise to support it, to determine whether or not people have cannabis in their system. And I think I'm still waiting for the purpose. I mean, the suggestions of the need for it at places of employment or in housing or is yet to be proven as to why there's a need for it. But as we move forward, we still can't even come up with a testing procedure that is reliable. And as I indicated to Rick via email when I saw his article pointing out many of these flaws, his Compassion Chronicles piece, it included my...
There's no flaws in the Compassion Chronicles.
No. In the flaws...
the flaws in the methodology.
Pointed out the flaws, right. Okay.
Testing.
Did I say that wrong, or he just...
No, you said it right.
Okay.
I'm just trying to have fun. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I
No
interrupted
problem.
the rhythm for humor. I apologize.
But anyways, I included, David Rudoy, who's often on the show, and a friend, lawyer of mine.
Unprecedented amount of interruption during the
It's okay.
rant, actually.
And
I will be disciplined.
And it continues. How is this going on?
I feel like I'm almost on time, except for these interruptions. Jamie, you're going to have to take over. So, what was I saying? No, okay. Rudoy. So we're in a case with Rudoy, and his client allegedly tests positive. They're using a saliva test. They're like using it at the bond office, and there's no reliability. These things are a joke. They would never be able to substantiate what is called the Daubert standard of proof that the scientific protocol, the scientific study, or the procedure that is being used to offer evidence of something has been readily accepted in the scientific community. It's not the case. And so it's just interesting to me that like we had just dealt with this, and then this issue comes up, and it's no question that there's a detection factor, but with no reason, no purpose. And then whatever the detection factor is, there's no science to support anything even close to impairment. Furthermore, if I didn't mention before, Marilyn Hoistis' studies show that it's up to about 20 nanograms that are inconclusive of an individual's, and much of it determines the period of time in which the test is taken, and a lot of other factors that go into it. And it's an interesting issue, and I think we'll hear more and more about it. What was troubling to me is that, as I mentioned in my response to my comment to Rick, was that unfortunately we've seen these kind of suggested testing, these roadside testing, which are a joke to create business, create crimes, and usually what follows this kind of legislation is the per se numbers, as happened in Colorado and Washington. I would hate to think that the same pattern's happening here. So I say that when we address these issues, and I want to hear about some of the testimony that came out today and what was said, I think it's important to realize that this has happened before, and the trend has been that after the testing comes the per se numbers, which is and it has to be addressed in a very in a better way, taking it scientifically with some of the things that I've said in the other science that supports it. All right, I think it's time to take a break. I'm going to look at Jamie and point to him and say I am way ahead of schedule. And we've got an exciting show, as I said. We've got well-informed, long-time activist calling in Doug McVay and talking about the descheduling, rescheduling, a number of other things that are happening. Maybe we'll even get his input on the testing issues. And backing that up will be Robin Schneider and Ben Horner talking about the status of the provisioning center and what's the story with the state police and are they playing obstructionist. And then with all that being said, we're going to take a quick break and come back shortly. You're listening to Planet Green Trees. The call-in number is 1-347-326-9626. And we'll be right back.